Hello, everyone. I'm Kamraun.
And I'm Billy. Welcome to the Horse Frog Podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors.
Today, we will be discussing Book 4, Chapter 24 of Memories of Ice, a novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This is part 2 of our coverage of this chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it's most definitely not a replacement to reading the books. Both Kamraun and I know that this series is the best fantasy story ever written, and we're approaching this from a purely fanboy point of view. There'll be no literary critique of Mr. Erikson's series, at least.
We'll be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those that haven't read the books. We'll try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book.
Now, quick warning, today's episode contains descriptions of adult topics and extreme violence, and thus is not suitable for children.
Our show's listener supported. If you'd like to support us, we'd really appreciate it. You can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at horsefrogproductions.com. Currently, we're posting ad-free episodes on Patreon weekly.
Also, we would really like to hear from you, and we really do mean that, so send any feedback or comments that you have to contact@horsefrogproductions.com.
Dane reached out to us with a thought experiment regarding blend.
Dane!
And this is in relation to the conversation that Quick Ben had with Blend when she tried to give the pendant to him, and he said, you keep it, you wouldn't be Blend otherwise.
Okay.
Then he realized that she was an adept, and the powers were coming from her natively. It's not something that the pendant was giving her. And Dane had a little bit of a thought experiment, wondering whether there was a possible path for Blend where she's actually told that she has these powers, and she decides to develop them through some tutelage or practicing on her own, something along those lines, and how that would change her trajectory.
Yeah. That could.
What do you think she would be like if she decided to become a high mage of hiding?
Make her a heck of an assassin if she wanted to be an assassin. If she liked doing that kind of business. But I don't know. I never really think about stuff like that. I don't know what I think about it. I really don't have much to think about it.
You're right. I think being a good assassin or thief probably falls right in there.
Oh yeah. It's spy. I guess. I'm sorry. Spy is another good one. I guess she's more scout type material. She might be more of a spy.
Yeah. That too. I mean, they all kind of go hand in hand. They're so adjacent to each other.
Yeah.
The scout / assassin / thief, they're so close together.
They usually kind of get lumped under the rogue heading or something like that. Some of the early RPGs, on computers.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for reaching out, Dane. Interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, good to hear from you.
We also got some comments, multiple comments, from one of our listeners named, and forgive me if I'm wrong here, Ariwan. In Chapter 21, Part 2, Ariwan says, Dujek reveals to Whiskey Jack that Tayshren killed Nightchill because she was going after Rake's sword. We mentioned, when we were talking about this, that it wasn't clear why she would want the sword, and that's why he reached out. He says that a few chapters ago, and this was prior to Chapter 21, when Nightchill was talking telepathically to Perrin, she conveyed her desire to free Draconis by breaking Dragnapur. So I think this follows that she wanted that sword to break it so as to free Draconis. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Looking at it that way, we were in the moment thinking that she'd probably try to enslave everybody or something. Maybe she'd take a little time to, well, I don't know what's more important to her. I guess it depends on how dire the situation is. If she needs Draconis for this existence to continue so that it doesn't get corrupted by the crippled god or something, then okay, I guess she'd give it up. But if there's a possibility of her coming out on top and being able to keep it, something about her personality tells me that she'd want it if possible.
Yeah, that could be. This is a weakness in myself. When I talk with people about things like this, you and I talk about like hypothetical kind of things. I've never really pretty good at thinking about alternatives other than what's going on or what I'm reading in particular. I don't tend to think about, I wonder, I don't know why I've never really thought that direction. So, when her, for me, when I think of somebody going for something that powerful, I don't think of her as being altruistic from what I've seen.
Agreed. Ariwan also mentioned that in Deadhouse Gates, there's a paragraph when Sari remembers Dancer's memories. And I guess at that point, if it was in Deadhouse Gates, it would be Apsalar.
Okay.
She says that Lasine gave the order to the Talan Imas regarding the incident in Erin when they invaded Erin and killed a bunch of people. And in the chapter where, I guess it was Chapter 21, Part 2, where Dujak's having this info dump conversation with Whiskey Jack, he says that Shadow Throne was the one that gave the order.
Right.
Ariwan's a little bit confused because it's a conflicting information. He's not sure what to think here. It casts doubt about Dujak's recalling of Pale and Darujistan. Now, from my perspective, Lysine doesn't have access to the Throne of Shadow, and that's what you have to command the Talani Mass.
Right.
So I think that it was Shadow Throne, and maybe this is one of those instances where things are a little bit inconsistent in the books, or maybe memory is not clear. When somebody's saying I remembered something, like Apsalar is saying I remember Sari thinking that Lysine gave this order or whatever it was.
Right. Like you said, I'm with you in the fact I just think it's just kind of one of those things that it's just, not that it's an inconsistency possibly, it's just a possibility that maybe it's just two different viewpoints think two different things.
Yeah.
And two things are said. It's not necessarily one is truer than the other. It's just from that character's point of view, that was the truth.
Maybe Dancer doesn't know. Like, maybe Shadowthrone lied to him.
That could be. He's a rascal.
Because Shadowthrone had to do it. I really believe that. Nobody else has access to the Throne of Shadow. The true Throne of Shadow.
I agree with you. I think to command the Talani Mass, I thought you had to be in control of the Throne of Shadow, or this, whatever he's controlling.
Right.
The Mianus throne, whatever it is, man. I've lost track of which throne it actually is, but
it's the true Throne of Shadow.
Oh, okay. So it's the true Throne of Shadow, so he's controlling that, but he has to have that to control the Talani Mass, though, for sure. I agree with that. So it would have to be him, by that logic.
And then finally, Arwan had a comment on Krupp goading Brood into swinging his hammer. Not only has Calor been reminded of Brood's power, Krupp, who's Silver Fox's companion, has defied it. And Arwan thinks it was Krupp sending a message to Calor as well about his capabilities in being able to withstand attacks or power levels of a certain magnitude. And I hadn't thought of that. And it very well may be that Krupp was trying to send a message to more than just Brood.
And that's really interesting, because I'm like you, I had not thought of that in any way, shape, or form. And because notice that Krupp irritates everyone, and we mean everyone he comes into contact with. Ascendants are not immune to this. I don't recall, at least after the incident, I don't recall Calor so much as thinking any bad things in his direction, especially because Calor, whenever we see him, always has that hateful internal dialogue, the you will pay monologue on repeat there. So Krupp doesn't seem to have entered into that, at least not that I recall.
Mm-hmm.
So that could very well be the case. That could have sent a very strong message to Calor. Message received. But also, I do remember one thing, though. Calor did suss out that it was actually Kroll backing him, didn't he?
I don't remember at this juncture.
Yeah. He had suspicions about it. He kept noticing it, but it didn't make him any less willing to challenge him. He was not willing to challenge that Elder God, at least.
Your mention of everybody getting annoyed with Krupp made me wonder if there's a patience Warren, someone that practices patience.
If that is true, would there not have to also be the opposite Warren?
Yeah, you're right.
The antithesis to the patience Warren. I'm not saying they don't exist. It's like you have the Zen Warren where everyone's all super chill, and then everyone is just freaking out and pissed off all the time.
Yeah. It's just chaotic noise and everybody's all amped up all the time.
It's like a white trash speed freak heaven.
Well, thanks, Arwan, for reaching out
Yes.
and providing those comments. Definitely some stuff that we hadn't thought of, so we really appreciate it. And Dane, thanks for reaching out.
Yeah. Thank y'all both. We appreciate it as always.
All right, Chapter 24, Part 2. We pick up the chapter with the Bridge Burners, immediately after that cliffhanger of an ending last week, where the coin flipped to the lads' side for bad luck as the flight of Quarrels took off to go into Coral, and Corlat did not see them.
Yeah. Here we go.
Less than a man's height beneath them, the city's wall blurred past. Once past it, the Moranth swept their Quarrels still lower, swept into an avenue between buildings, flying below the roof lines. A sharp turn at an intersection directed the flight towards the keep. Perrin, struggling to ignore the fierce burning itch of the stitches threading the side of his face, risked a glance down. Feast piles were visible in the street, many of them still glowing dull red and sheathed in smoke. A pile of bones burned to ash is one thing. Something about them still glowing makes it a lot worse to me.
It's one of these things you'd call like a lurid image. When you add something about the glowing adds something more, it's fresher, I think. Like it's just happened, It's just nastier or something. I don't know why, but it is.
I imagine some of them still aren't fully burned through, so they're probably not as charred and blackened. I think that's probably part of the image for me that bothers me.
Okay.
The occasional torch mounted on building walls revealed cobbles cluttered with refuse. The city slept beneath them, it seemed. He saw not a single guard or soldier. Perrin returned his attention to the keep. Its outer wall was high, well fortified, if anything, stronger than the one enclosing the city. The main structure beyond it was as much raw rock as worked stone. The keep had been carved into a mountainside. Monstrous gargoyles lined the ragged roof's edge, black and hunched, barely visible as darker blots against the night sky. Then Perrin saw one move. He thought, condors. Oh, we're in the abyss now. He thumped on the Maranth's shoulder, jabbed a gloved finger down to the street below. The officer nodded. If this scene was filmed correctly, this could be such a terrifying reveal. The transition from simple ornamentation into the realization that there are many of those horrific condors on the battlements would be amazing on screen.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's just... Have we seen this in anything before? If not, I feel like I've seen this before because he does such a visual image. He presents such visually good images, it's hard to not see it easily.
What it really reminds me of is something from an Alien movie where you have a scene and it's hidden in the background and it's camouflaged and then you see it move.
Yeah.
I think it evokes that type of horror imagery. I think that's ultimately what it boils down to.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's very troubling. You've leveled it with Alien. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah.
They're on that level to me. These things, beyond the childhood damage of the Dark Crystal,
right?
Which I saw some clips from the remake of it, and they're just as horrific to me as an adult as they were then. I don't know if it's just childhood trauma or what, but these condors are intrinsically tied with that memory, and then what goes on in this chapter, they're just as horrible.
Yes, they are. It's bad enough that we have magic wielding great ravens, but the condor is, 20 times bigger than the raven, if not bigger than that. So I assume the magic is just as equivalent as in nastiness, and we've seen what kind of nastiness they've done some so far.
Yeah, let's come back to that thought, because I think it's actually worse than the Great Ravens.
Oh, no, way worse.
Yeah.
I think it's way, way worse. I guess what I was trying to get at is that I think that I believe their power level would be larger, their bodies physically bigger. So are they, in fact, that kind of, are they that order of magnitude stronger than a raven due to size?
Let's come back to that as well.
Because
there's going to be something that comes up here, and we'll talk about that specifically.
Go.
As one, the quarrels carrying the bridge burners darted down, skimmed a dozen paces at waist height over the street, then settled with a single tilt of wings. Soldiers scrambled from the saddles, seeking shadows. The Maranth and their quarrels leapt skyward once more, wheeling for the return flight. Crouched in a dark alley mouth, Perrin waited for the squads to gather around him. Quickben was first to his side. He said, "The keep's roof." Perrin growled, "I saw." "Any ideas, wizard?" Anstey spoke up. "How about finding a cellar and hiding, Captain?" Quickben glared at the sergeant, then looked around and asked, "Where's Hedge?" The sapper pushed forward, waddling beneath bulging leather sacks. That is a terrifying image in and of itself. When Hedge is carrying sacks full of munitions, some stuff's about to go down.
Yeah, it's gonna get hairy.
Quickben asked, "Did you see the damn sparrows?" making a strange half-shrugging motion with his left shoulder. Hedge said, "Aye. We need sharpshooters atop the wall. I've got 12 quarrels with sharpers instead of points. We do it right, and we can take out that many." Spindle cut in, "Raining bird meat, burning feathers." Hedge asked, "Is that worse than burning hair shirt, Spin?" Perrin snapped, "Quiet! All right, get hooks on the wall and line our brilliant crossbow experts to the top. Hedge, find the right place to set the cusser bundle and crackers, and do it fast. We've got to time this right. I want those birds knocked from their perches, not in the air. Dujek's first wave is probably already on the way, so let's move." Perrin waved Picker to point. They headed towards the keep wall. Reaching the street's edge opposite, Picker raised a hand and crouched low. Everyone froze. Perrin moved up to just behind her. She leaned back and whispered, "Erdom and guards. The gate's 20 paces to the left. Well lit." Perrin asked, "The guards are well lit?" Picker said, "Aye." Perrin exclaimed, "Idiots!" Picker said, "Aye, but I'm wondering." Perrin asked, "What?" Picker said, "We switch back and head right. Come up again. We'll be at a corner of the wall. Hedge likes corners." Perrin said, "So we leave the guards where they are." Picker said, "Aye, Captain. Hood knows, in that light, they won't see a damn thing. And we'll be far enough away for the sound the hooks make, if they make any, not to reach them." Perrin said, "You hope." Picker said, "They're all wearing great helms, sir." Perrin said, "All right, take us round, Lieutenant." Picker said, "A moment, sir. Blend?" Blend said, "Here." Picker said, "Stay here. Keep an eye on those guards." Blend said, "Aye, sir." Picker nodded to Perrin and headed back down the street. The squads wheeled and followed. It seemed to Perrin as he padded along that he was the only one making a sound, and far too much sound at that. The 30-odd soldiers around him were ghostly silent. They moved from shadow to shadow without pause. And that's impressive skill from these soldiers, given they're all wearing armor and they have a bunch of weapons with them and stuff. They're true veterans.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing about Perrin, too. Perrin is now one of the gang, but he is also, I guess, technically the least experienced in the field of common combat.
Yeah. If they are bridge burners and they went through the Holy Desert Raraku with Whiskey Jack, then they've been in the service for 10, 12 years at this point.
Yeah.
Something along those lines, right?
Yeah. It's really cool to see them work. It's just the small stuff. They're just at it. They're just so professional. It's like they're usually just such rascals and scamps all the time. But it's like when it's time for business, it's all stoom and get to work, dude. Shut your mouth. Let's do it.
Yeah. And you would think that they would be more like your standard issue soldier, but instead they're almost like special operations unit or something.
Yeah.
They're in ahead of everybody else. They're doing this softening up of the wall defenses so that the regular troops can get in. They're silent and they're still wearing armor and everything. It's a different way of seeing the soldiers that you'd expect in this fantasy medieval type scenario.
Yeah, agreed.
A sixth of a bell later, Picker once more approached the street facing the compound wall. Directly ahead was a squared corner tower, surmounted by a massive battlement. The squads closed in behind the lieutenant. Perrin heard the sappers whispering with glee upon seeing the tower. One said, "Won't that come down pretty?" Another said, "Like a potato on a spindly stick." Yet another said, "Brace the crackers, right? Drive the forces in at an angle to meet in arm's reach inside the cornerstone." Hedge said, "You tellin' Granddad where's the pretty hole, Rudter? Shut up and leave it to me, Spin, right?" The sapper said, "I was just saying, Hedge." Perrin cut in, "Enough, all of you. Crossbows up top before any of you do anything else." Hedge said, "Aye, sir. Ready the hooks, dearies. You with the crossbows, line up and get your sharper quarrels. Hey, no cutting in. Show some manners, woman." Perrin drew Quick Ben to one side, a few paces behind the others, and muttered, 12 explosive quarrels, wizard. There's at least 30 condors. Let's remember that number. 30 of them.
Okay. 30.
Quick Ben said, "You don't think Dujak's attack inside the city walls will draw them away?" Perrin said, "Sure. Long enough for them to annihilate that first wave, leave a few of their own circling to greet the second wave, while the rest come back to take care of us." Quick Ben said, "You've something in mind, Captain?" Perrin said, "A second diversion, one to pull the rest of the condors away from both Dujak and the bridge burners." "Quick, can you take us through a warren to that roof?" Quick Ben asked, "Us, sir?" Perrin said, "You and I, yes. And Ansi, Spindle, Deterin, Mallet, and Trots." Quick Ben said, "I can do that, Captain, but I'm just about used up." Perrin said, "Just get us there, wizard. Where's Spin?" Perrin looked back at the others, nodded when he found the man, and then said, "Wait here." Perrin hurried to where Spindle crouched with the other sappers, reached out and dragged him from the huddle. He said, "Hedge, you'll have to do without this man." Hedge grinned and said, "What a relief, Captain." Spindle said, "Hey!" Perrin said, "Quiet, Spindle," and pulled him to where Quick Ben waited. Quick Ben asked, "What have you got in mind?" as soon as they arrived. Perrin said, "In a moment. Quick, those condors. What precisely are they?" Quick Ben said, "Not sure, sir." Perrin said, "Not what I want to hear, wizard. Try again." Quick Ben said, "All right. I think they once were real condors. Smaller, normal size, that is. Then the seer somehow figured out a way of stuffing the birds." Spindle snickered and said, "Stuffing the birds, ha!" Quick Ben reached out and cuffed the man. He said, "Don't interrupt again, Spin. Demons, Captain. Possession. Chaos aspected, which is why their bodies can't quite hold it all." Perrin said, "So, demon and bird both." Quick Ben said, "One is the master over the other, of course." All right, I'm going to pause here. I want to come back to what you were talking about earlier.
Okay.
You were talking about, does size indicate the level of power that these things are capable of? And in some ways, I think it does. In some ways, it might be disassociated.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
given that these are demonic possessions inside these condors, and they kind of grew to the size they are because of that, the demons that are in them, it does seem that there's an upper limit on how big they can grow.
Right.
But I don't know if there's like a direct correlation between the power level of the demon inside and the size of the condor.
Right.
Maybe some condors died because they couldn't handle the demon that was possessing them, got too big or something like that.
Right.
It does seem that they're linked, but I don't know if there's direct correlation between how big they are and the power level of the sorcery that they output.
I agree, size, and that may not make a difference, but I guess they're more powerful than they once were, maybe because they're getting bigger, because they're chaos aspected. That's making things, so everything's growing under chaos at the moment. I mean, if it's chaotic aspected, I guess it helps aid them as well, too, doesn't it? In their size and in their power, I'm assuming, as well.
Yeah, when you think of chaos, it's almost like a cancerous growth, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. There may be some correlation, but just not sure what. How much correlation?
Mm-hmm. Perrin said, of course, and this is in reference to one being the master over the other. He asked, now which one does the flying? Quick Ben said, well, the condor. Then his eyes narrowed. He glanced at Spindle, then grinned and said, well, hey, maybe. Spindle said, what are you two going on about? Perrin asked, you hoarding any munitions, Spindle? Spindle said, 6 sharpers. Perrin said, good, in case this goes wrong. They turned at a hissed command from Picker to see a half-dozen soldiers sprinting across the street to pull up at the base of the compound wall. Hooks and ropes were readied. Perrin said, damn, I didn't realize how high that wall was. How are they? Quick Ben said, look again, sir. Toes is with them. Perrin said, so? Quick Ben said, watch, sir. Toes had opened his warren. Perrin tried to recall the man's specialty, was answered by the smoky appearance of a dozen ghosts who drifted close around Toes. Perrin softly grunted and said, if those are the ones who keep falling over... Quick Ben said, no, these are local spirits, Captain. People fall from the walls all the time. And since this one is more than a few hundred years old, well, the numbers pile up. Anyway, most ghosts are somewhat single-minded. The last they remember, they were on the wall, patrolling, standing guard, whatever. So they want to get back up there. Perrin watched the spirits, 6 of them, now somehow carrying hooks, slither up the wall. The other 6 had closed ghostly hands on Toes and were lifting him to follow. The squad mage did not look happy, legs flailing. That poor guy. That would be absolutely terrifying, being lifted up by these spirits.
Oh, yeah, and especially this is not a short wall. As I've gotten older, I've become more leery of heights because, man, it's going to mess me up bad if I fall. So I can imagine this guy being terrified of being lifted quite a ways in the air, especially by a bunch of ghosts.
Yeah, he has no fall protection either.
No, not whatsoever. Not letting go is the only fall protection he's got.
Yeah, but they're ethereal. I guess they do have some influence on the plane that they're on now, but spirits generally can't interface with you directly, right?
No, but maybe his being a necromancer gives them some physicality.
It's a specialization within his warren.
It could be one of his spells. He's got laid up, give flesh. I don't know, man. Give flesh for 3 rounds.
Perrin said, I thought the warrens were poisoned. Quick Ben shrugged and said, Hood's hit back hard, Captain. He's cleared a space. Perrin frowned, but said nothing. And this makes me wonder if all mages that are death aspected are benefiting from this deal with Hood. Because I was under the impression that the deal was exclusively with Quick Ben and was being facilitated through Talamandus.
That's been my impression too. Do you think he's just saying that to throw Perrin off, looking too closely at him?
That would mean to me that Talamandus is somehow aiding Toes in what he's doing right now with these spirits.
He might be. What's weird about that, this is where it gets weird. I don't know how this stuff works. Do they have to keep their warrens open? Or is it just one thing, once you cast it, you can shut it so you can kind of use a little of your warren to pull up a bunch of these local spirits, and then you don't have to control it anymore, and then I don't know, man. I think you're probably right. I guess Hood is doing more as we're closer here. Maybe he's sending this as an assist.
I think I figured it out. Talamandus is the Magi of Death. So he is death aspected now and able to channel Hood's magic. Maybe because Toes is using Hood's realm, his warren, for his magic, then there's no intermediary necessary. Hood is allowing his power to flow to Toes uncorrupted. He doesn't need an intermediary. Yeah,
he doesn't need an intermediary because the intermediary is there on the battlefield doing it for him. Something like that. I think we're saying the same thing.
I think he's directly just channeling his warren and Hood's cleaned it up for him. That's my impression of it.
Okay, cool.
Back to your point about how they're using it, if they just use it and then it's there, or whether they have to channel it. I think it's a channeling type thing, because throughout these books, we've always said that they let a trickle of their warren out, or they open their warren a little, unveil their warren, and the power starts to bloom from them. So I think it's actually actively flowing through them as they're doing the magic.
Okay, makes sense.
Do you see it that way, or do you think of it?
Yeah, I agree. That sounds good. I think that sounds good.
Reaching the top of the wall, Toes took charge once more, retrieving and placing each hook since it was clear that the spirits were either incapable of such precision with physical objects or disinclined. The mage had to struggle with a couple of them to get the roped hooks from their hands. So that part really got me, because it's like he's having to confiscate an ice cream from a toddler or something. They don't want to give these hooks up. It's hilarious.
That does make it sound like that when you put it like that. That's funny.
Eventually, Toes had all the hooks positioned, ropes uncoiled, snaked down to the soldiers waiting below. The first 6 crossbow-equipped soldiers began climbing. Perrin cast an anxious glance up at the row of condors surmounting the main building. None stirred. He said, "Thank Hood they sleep deep." Quickben said, "Aye, building power for what's to come, far into their chaotic warren." Perrin turned round and studied the dark sky to the northwest. Nothing. Then again, it wasn't likely that he'd be able to see them in any case. They'd be coming in low, just as his flight had done. The second 6 soldiers with crossbows strapped to their backs crossed the street and set hands to ropes. Perrin said, "Wizard, ready that warren." Quickben said, "It's ready, Captain." Picker was suddenly waving madly in Perrin's direction. Hissing a curse, he rushed to join her. The remaining squads had pulled far back from the street. Picker said, "Captain, lean out, sir, and check down at the gate." Perrin did so. There was activity there. The gates had opened, and out were filing, one after another, huge reptilian warriors. Perrin thought, "Ka-chain Shamal. So that's what the damn things look like." Hood's breath. 5, 10, 15, still more, marching out into the city, towards the north wall. He thought, and Dujak's about to land in their laps. These guys are in some serious trouble between the Condors and the Ka-chain Shamal. Could these troops have any worse luck? Being outnumbered by soldiers is one thing, but the odds are terrible in this case.
Yeah, these odds appear to be horrifically stacked against them at the moment. Really badly.
Yeah, if you think back to the beginning of the book, 3 Ka-chain Shamal messed up that party that was traveling with Bacalane, Corval Broach, Gruntle, that whole crew. And they had the Barghast there as well.
If it was more than 3, man, their crew wouldn't have made it.
Absolutely not. He settled back, met Picker's eyes, and said, "Lieutenant, we've got to divert those damn things." She rubbed at her face, glanced back at the remaining squads, then said, "They're supposed to be pretty fast, those undead lizards. But with all these alleys and streets..." She faced Perrin once more, gave a swift nod, then said, "We've a few sharpers in hand. We'll give 'em good reason to come after us." Perrin said, "Just make sure you stay ahead, Lieutenant. If you can, keep everyone together." Picker said, "Sir, that's not likely. We'll have to scatter, I expect, just to keep the things confused." Perrin said, "All right, but try anyway." Picker asked, "And you, Captain?" Perrin said, "Quicken Ansie's squad. We're headed onto the keep's roof. We'll be trying our own diversion with the rest of these condors. You've got the bridge burners now, Lieutenant." Picker said, "Aye, Captain. So, who do you figure will die first, you or us?" Perrin said, "That's too close to call." She grinned and said, "Half my back pay, Captain. We'll be a step behind you. Pay up at Hood's gate." There she is. It's been a while since we've seen the gambling junkie side of Picker's personality. For a while there, she was betting on something every single time we saw her.
Yeah, and I think this is probably, I think what happens here is, especially as it's about to hit the fan here, it's like, it's time to, it brings it out. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm owed a bunch of back pay, so, it just brings out that side of you, probably, I'm assuming.
Yeah, she's like, well, even if I die and I lose, I won't have to pay it back.
That's right.
Perrin said, "You're on, Lieutenant. Now, leave Hedge and his sappers to blowing that tower. Gather up Blend and the rest of you get going." Picker said, "Aye, sir." Perrin made to move away, but Picker reached out and touched his arm and said, "Captain?" He said, "What?" She said, "Well, those knives at your back? They've been turned the other way for some time. Just wanted you to know." Perrin glanced away, then said, "Thank you, Lieutenant." That was a very touching moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
Does it seem to you like he got a bit emotional there, or am I projecting onto this scene?
Oh, I can feel the tear welling up. That's why I had to look away. Dude, get out of here. Why would he have glanced away?
Yeah. Quickben had pulled together Ansie and his squad, minus Hedge and Blend. As soon as Perrin joined them, the wizard nodded and said, "Say when, Captain." Perrin glanced over at the compound wall. The ropes hung slack. No one was in sight along the top. Perrin asked, "How long since you last saw them?" Quickben shrugged and said, "I expect they're in position now, sir. Hedge looks about ready." Perrin's eyes dropped to see the team of sappers gathered in a tight, nervously shifting pack at the tower's base. He said, "That was fast." Quick Ben said, "Hedges lightning when he's scared witless, sir. We'd better." Perrin cut in, "Yes, open your warren." He glanced over at Anstey. The sergeant, Deteran, Trotz, and Mallet had dropped the visors on their helms. Weapons were out. Spindle crouched nearby, a sharper clutched in his right hand. Perrin said, "Hold it. Quick, did you tell Spin what?" Quick Ben cut in, "Aye, sir, and he's working on it just fine." Spindle managed a weak grin. Perrin said, "All right, let's go." The portal flashed open, bled darkness into the street. Perrin's eyes widened. He thought, Kurald Ghislaine. What? Quick Ben hissed, "Follow me," darting into the warren. Did we know that Quick Ben had access to Kurald Ghislaine?
I don't believe so. And this kind of goes me on a little bit of a tangent, not too bad a one, but I jokingly say, does he have access to all the warrens? I know he does not have access to all the warrens, but are humans only able to affect their warrens, or or these elder warrens, are they called to serve these elder warrens too? Does that question make sense? Like if you're Hood, let's take it, Hood's an elder, right? Isn't he? Or not?
I believe so.
I think Death is pretty elder.
Yes. I don't know that Hood has always been the god over the Warren of Death. That's the only reason I say that.
Right.
The distinction I was making was Hood, who is currently the god of that realm, I believe is considered an elder god.
Right. So do humans, I guess humans can work the elder warrens as well then, I guess, because Death would be an elder warren in my mind, I guess. And if you have Death expected magic users, they're using elder warrens. So I think I answered my own question because I didn't know if humans could access the elders, but I think they can. And Ben is obviously accessing it. He's human.
The weird thing for me about it is it seems like the only people we've seen that were able to access Kurald Ghislaine had Tistandi lineage in their blood.
Yes.
So that's what's interesting about it. And I mean, he's got 12 souls in him, so maybe one of them was Tistandi related or something.
Yes. I guess that's what I was going to ask next, would be like, did one of the souls he can that's in there with him is maybe half test or something like that?
They've been around for hundreds of thousands of years. You would expect that gene pool to be, I would think that there is some of that in a lot of people alive on this planet.
Probably so. More than you would realize, probably.
Yeah, it might be watered down quite heavily, but it's probably there.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not the case, though, because I'm not sure how much intermixing happens regularly between the different species of humanoids. We've seen it.
Yes.
There have been a number of half-blooded individuals, but I'm not sure truly how common that is. People generally tend to stick within their group.
Yeah, they do.
There will be some mixing, but Tistandi in particular, given how they seem to be reclusive or sticking together, they're not really intermingling with humans that much.
I don't get that impression at all. I'm like you. I think what it is we've seen it because what we're dealing with in this world, because we're dealing with all of the people that are the top 1% of everything in this universe. We're dealing with the best of the best here. So that's why it seems more common to us, but it's just because we've seen it.
Yeah. Not everybody's a main character in this world.
Yes. Yes. There's a lot
they
of
may be in their own story,
in this world,
but not in the Malazan Book of the Fallen.
Not to the rest of us.
Yeah. The squad plunged forward, was swallowed. Perrin flung himself into their wake. The transition was almost instantaneous. Perrin stumbled across slick tiles. They were on the keep's roof, 30 paces behind the row of condors. A dozen of the huge demonic creatures suddenly exploded, spraying blood and flesh to spatter across the roof. The others jerked awake as one.
I'm so sorry. That is just got to be nasty as all get out.
Yes.
12 of these big boys just blowing up all of a sudden. It's just covering everybody. Dead bird. Oh my gosh,
demonic flesh.
Yes, that's nasty.
Sulfurous fumes coming off of it or something.
Oh.
Loosing piercing cries, they spread vast wings and launched themselves upward. Spindle had already unleashed his warren, and its effect was instantaneous. The condors shrilled with terror, wings thundering in panic, heads twisting on spasming necks as the mortal beast within each body, gripped with blind fear engendered by Spindle's twisted talent, warred with demon for command. Crossbow quarrels shot up from along the compound wall, thudded into the flailing creatures. And you called it a couple weeks ago when you mentioned that Spindle would be useful in defeating a cavalry charge.
Yeah, that's just amazing here. I love this. This is, I mean, to laugh inappropriate, but it's kind of funny. I mean, all of a sudden they pop up on the roof and these guys are so well timed together. It's like that's what I'm laughing at is the amazing synchronized firing of the 12 Malazan crossbowmen as they jump out of the war and simultaneously blowing these guys to ribbons. It's like, oh my gosh, that's just too funny in a weird way.
It's beautifully executed.
Yeah. Big time, dude. Hey, these guys, bridge burners. I think this has been the most bridge burnery book we've seen. Where they do more shenanigans as bridge burners than this, isn't it? So far.
Yeah. This is the first book we've seen where we get to see them work. You might have seen a little bit of it at the end of Gardens of the Moon, but I mean, really work this book. It's beautiful to see.
Yes. It was working in Gardens of the Moon. We were just unaware of it. It was around the edges. That was what was so beautiful about it.
Right. So this is a very interesting timing. My mom sends me a Reddit post where this person in North Carolina posted a picture of a cardinal that's head was bare. And they said, what is this thing? Is it sick? What's going on with it? And the top voted comment,
I see it. This is great, dude.
Is a cartoon. And it says, know your northern cardinals. And it has a picture of a juvenile, an adult male, an adult female. And then it has a picture of blood cheap, frightful molt demon of the cursed abyss. And it's like a cardinal that's missing all the feathers on its head except for a couple sticking out. Now, given we're talking about these demonically possessed condors, this is just beautiful timing. It's hilarious.
It is, dude.
Yeah, just look up blood cheap.
Yeah, look that up, people. It is hilarious because... And also, you might as well just look up the Skeksis while we're at it, because I'm going to have to reference that again, because it also has any shaved bird, any vulture. It's what it is. It's the vulture look. Got the shaved, nasty-looking head, the exposed head that doesn't have feathers.
Yeah, like a buzzard look.
Yeah, buzzard. Yeah, that's what it is, the buzzard. Yeah, they got no hair. They got no feathers. They don't look cool. It's like they always look nasty. It's like, dude, what happened to your feathers, man? What's the matter with your head, bro? So that's what this blood sheep guy looks like. I don't like that. That's funny. Blood sheep. And the umlauts, I particularly enjoyed the umlauts in his name.
Yeah. I don't even know how you'd pronounce that other than blood cheap.
I know it. It's blot, wouldn't it? Blot cheap. I don't know. I'm thinking of Motley Crue. I'm doing my best here. Mm-hmm. That's my only umlaut reference.
The entire keep shuddered. Perrin spun to see the compound tower to his left suddenly topple. The enormous battlement pitching towards the street. Smoke billowed. Shouts followed as the bridge burners lining the top of the wall scrambled towards the ropes. Sharpers echoed from the streets to the east. Picker and her remaining bridge burners had just surprised the column of Kachain Chamal, and the pursuit was on. Quickpan pulled Perrin close and said, "The demons are winning the struggle." The condors were slowly gaining height, drawing ever further from the influence of Spindle's warren. If they felt any discomfort for being studded with quarrels, they showed no sign of it. Sorcery crackled around them. Oh no, maybe this ambush was not as effective as I thought.
Well, it did buy them some time, and they did take out at least 12 of these things. So that's almost half in one go. So that's not a bad gamble or a bad... I mean, it could have been worse.
True. I guess they did accomplish the goal of it being a diversion, but you would hope it would be really effective beyond what's happening here. The fact that they're recovering so quickly isn't a good sign.
No, it's not.
Quickpen said, "They'll come round for us, Captain." Perrin said, "Better us than Dujek. Now, can we keep them occupied for a time, wizard?" Quickpen said, "Most of them, aye." Perrin asked, "How?" Quickpen said, "Well, to start, we can run to the south side of this building." Perrin thought, "Run? That's it?" Then said, "Let's move then."
I'm just laughing because it's like, run, that's it. At least he kept that quiet bit inside.
Yeah. I guess Quickpen doesn't have the answer to everything.
Yeah.
They're so used to him being a genius that when he just has a normal suggestion, everybody's a little disappointed.
That's like a run. Yeah.
Outside the city's west wall, close to the shoreline's broken, jagged edge, a lazy swirl of dust rose from the ground, took form. Tool slowly settled the flint sword into its shoulder hook, his depthless gaze ignoring the abandoned shacks to either side and fixing on the massive stone barrier before him. Dust on the wind could rise and sweep high over this wall. Dust could run in streams through the rubble filled beneath the foundation stones. The Talani mask could make his arrival unknown. But the Panyan seer had taken Errol Fail, Tok the Younger, a mortal man who had called Tool friend. Oh man, it sounds like someone will pay. You will pay. He sounds upset.
Oh yeah, dude. That's what's cool. I mean, it's like, I'll come back to this. I'll touch back on Tool later on.
Okay. He strode forward, hide-wrapped feet kicking through scattered bones. The time had come for the first sword of the Talan Imas to announce himself. Sentences like that get me really amped up. I love it when Mr. Erikson writes this way. It's great. It's some of my favorite prose that he has in these books.
Oh, yeah, I get super jacked up, especially while I'm sharing this conversation with the brief first sword of Houston.
Temporarily. Legitimately or illegitimately earned. And I will say, I was in Dallas at the time, so you could say the first sword of Dallas, now residing in Houston.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah, there we go. Heck yeah, there we go. So I understand why this speaks directly to you, sir. First sword.
That's a good reference there. Good back reference on our episodes. The second wave, bearing another 1,000 soldiers, plunged down to fill the streets directly behind Dujak's position, even as explosions lit the skyline to the south, along the keep's roofline. Then directly beneath it, the latter a deeper sound, rumbling through the ground to rattle the cobbles, a sound the High Fist recognized. The breach had been made. Dujak addressed his officers and barked, "Time to push forward. Take your commands. We drive for the keep." He raised his visor. The air above was filled with the whispering flutter of coral wings. The second wave of carriers were climbing back into the night sky, even as a third approached from the north, moments from delivering another 1,000 Marines. The scale of this invasion is mind-boggling to me. Since each quarrel only carries a single passenger, there must be thousands of these things flying in and out of the city. Imagine the buzzing noise from all those wings. It would be like a bunch of ornithopters from Dune flying around.
You said it. Now that you've said it, I have that image. So, and I'm now sure now, I had not thought about this previously. We both know that Mr. Erikson is a huge Dune fan. So I'm kind of curious if the quarrel and the Morant are kind of a shout out to Dune I had not ever noticed before.
The scene where Perrin was being dropped off, how we started this episode off, I was very distinctly remembering the scene in the first Dune movie that Denis Villeneuve did, where Duncan Idaho is in the ornithopter trying to escape the ambush by the Harkonnens on Arrakeen. You remember? And he was flying through all those buildings and everything. And I just got the picture of the dragonfly with the walls real tight. They're flying real low to the ground. There was some of that imagery in that scene.
Yes, very much. Well, thank you for pointing that out. That's awesome, man. I felt very similar. It was any of those scenes from Denis Dune, like when they go to rescue the spice harvester, people running and flying low. Just in that quick flying sequences like that in those ornithopters, I'm reminded of the coral all of a sudden now. I'm like, I've not put that together before. But yeah, in particular, what you brought up, it was more so because that was some crazy stuff when he's trying to escape them. You and I both love Duncan dearly.
Poor guy.
Poor guy.
He's got a rough set of lives ahead of him.
Ooh. Yeah, this is just the start, buddy.
Sharpers echoed from the city to the east. Dujak paused to wonder at that. Then the sky ignited, a gray, rolling wave, sweeping towards the third flight. The High Fist watched, silent, as between two beats of his cold heart, 1,000 Black Maranth, their quarrels, and 5 companies of One-Arm's host disintegrated in gray flames. Behind the wave, sailing black and deadly, flew 3 condors. I made a note earlier. There were 30 condors on the wall. They killed 12 of them. 3 of them alone just killed 1,000 soldiers plus 1,000 Black Maranth and their quarrels. That is insane.
Yeah. Curse Mr. Erikson for his cinematic writing style. This needs to be on film.
Yes. Someone do it already. I would prefer an HBO series, with a high budget. Yeah. I think it'd be pretty good, as long as they don't butcher it like they did Game of Thrones. Perrin and Quickban were right to be afraid of the condors. Only 3 of them just took out that many soldiers. The scale of destruction is really hard to comprehend. It's very similar to the enfilade at Pale with the level of sorcery on display.
It really is. The only difference between this and Pale is that it's just not a complete rout. We have actual combat between groups, and it's still going on versus, Pale was just something ugly. It was like a couple of nukes being leveled on a couple of cities, and it was like, and nothing else really happened other than these dropping 2 big bombs real quick and getting out of there. It's like, holy smokes, dude, there wasn't much fighting at all.
So it really shows how dangerous sorcery is in this world. that always and even exchange saying where the soldiers protect their mages because they can't do anything against this unless they have their own mage to protect them.
That's right.
The Moranth of the second wave, who had climbed high before intending to turn about and race north, reappeared above the three condors, diving en masse towards the creatures. A fourth flight of carriers approaching from the northwest had captured the birds' attention. Ryder and Quarrel descended on the unsuspecting condors in successive suicidal attacks. The black-armored warriors drove lances deep into the feathered bodies. Quarrels twisted their triangular heads, chitinous jaws tearing strips of flesh, even as the collisions shattered their frail bodies and frailer wings. Hundreds of Quarrels died, their riders falling with them to strike roofs and streets, lying broken and unmoving. The three condors followed, dying as they fell. Dujek had no time to think of the horrific price his Moranth had paid for that momentary victory. And what a sacrifice that was on their part, too.
Wow. Let's just take a second to appreciate the hardcore nature of the Moranth here. I mean, knowing that it's like, dude, they just commit to it. It's like, well, let's do it. And they just suicide bomb these giant condors, and it takes several hundred of them. So basically, that kind of tells you an even number, too. It's basically one condor is equal to several hundred Quarrels and Moranth head to head.
Yeah. If they can swarm it, then yeah.
If they can swarm it. And so that's if you can get a grip on them, because these things, I'm assuming all they ever do is just kind of fly high and just lay on the death rays.
Yeah.
Aerial bombardment, I guess, is the best way of putting them.
Right. What was particularly impressive to me about what the Moranth did here was the speed with which they went and did that. There was no command given to do that. They just knew that they had to save all the other flights that were coming in.
They hardcore and awesome. Let's just talk about that's truly metal. That's metal.
Yeah, the Moranth are like the MVPs of this book. Aside from the bridge burners, they seem so proficient at everything they do. The Malazans are really lucky to have them as allies, really.
Oh, yes. And they know it. And they know it because they know that the Moranth munitions changed the name of their game and have made them what they are. So they're very appreciative of this bunch, I think.
Definitely. The fourth wing dropped down into the streets, soldiers fleeing themselves from the saddles and scrambling for cover. Dujek beckoned for a messenger and said, "New orders to the officers. The companies are to take buildings, defensible ones. The keep will have to wait. I want roofs over us." Another message bearer appeared and said, "High Fist." Dujek said, "What?" The messenger said, "The Panyan legions are assembling, sir. Every street in a line from the north gate right up to the keep." Dujek said, "And we hold the west third of the city. They're coming to drive us out, all right." He faced the first messenger and said, "Let the officers know so they can adjust their defense." But the second message bearer wasn't finished. He said, "High Fist, sir, sorry. There's Kachain Shamal with those legions." Dujek thought, "Then where is Silver Fox and her damned Talani mass?" After a moment he growled, "They could be dragons for all it matters." Then he turned to the first messenger and said, "Go." The soldier saluted and left. Dujek glared at the other message bearer, then said, "Find Twist and inform him we'll need a pass of his heavies, east of our position. Just one, though. Tell him that they probably won't make it back, so he'd better hold a wing in reserve." He raised his visor and studied the sky overhead. Dawn was arriving. The 5th and 6th wings had delivered their troops and were distant specks racing back towards the mountain. He thought, "That's it, then. We're all in Coral, and if we don't get help soon, we'll never leave." He nodded to the soldier and said, "That's all." Back to Perrin and Quick Ben. The condors circled above the rooftop, crying out to each other, dipping and diving, then, wings thudding the air, lifting back towards the paling sky. Perrin stared up, disbelieving. He hissed, "They must be able to see us." They crouched against a low wall beyond which was a parapet overlooking the harbor and Coral Bay, and the darkness that had swallowed them was fast fading. At his side, Quick Ben muttered, "They can't see us because I'm keeping them from seeing us. But they know we're here, somewhere." Perrin thought, "And that's why they're hanging around. Fine. Good. That means they're not busy annihilating Dujek's army." The keep shook beneath them, rattling tiles. Perrin asked, "Hood's breath, what was that?" Quick Ben scowled and said, "Not sure. That didn't sound like munitions. But I'd say the compound wall's been breached again." Perrin thought, again? By whom? The detonation had come from the harbor side, east. A billowing cloud of dust slowly lifted into view. And that sounds like Tool made his entrance. Convergence is taking place.
That's awesome. Here we go.
Do you think he just charged the wall and blasted through it?
That's kind of how I imagine it. Because Tool, to me, I'm sorry, Tool's one of my faves. I'll get to that later too, but I love that guy for some reason. But yeah, I'd say imagine how I imagine that, or he just whooped it with his sword. Either one, I don't know.
It's sick, man.
Yeah, it is. It's great.
So cool.
Yeah.
Perrin cautiously lifted his head until he could see past the low wall. Out over the bay, seagulls were screaming. The sea beyond, which seemed to be solid ice, was rumbling. Spouts exploded skyward along that south horizon. A storm was building out there. He thought, let's hope it comes here. We could do with the confusion. Quickben hissed, get your head down! Perrin said, sorry. Quickben said, I'm having enough trouble as it is, Captain. We need to stay tight. Stop kicking. Deteran, what? Oh, Captain, look north, sir. High up. Perrin twisted round. A wing of Moranth, no more than specks, were sailing over the city, east to west. 6 condors were climbing to meet them, but they had a long way to go. Smaller specks dropped from the Moranth, down onto the east half of the city. Their descent seemed to take forever. Then the first one struck the roof of a building. The explosion shattered the roof and upper floor. All at once, detonations trembled as cussor after cussor struck. Sorcery swept from the 6 condors, raced up to the distant Moranth. Bombs expended, the wings scattered. Nonetheless, more than a score did not escape the sorceress wave. Smoke and dust shrouded the east side of Coral. Above Perrin and the squad, the remaining condors screamed with rage. Quickben whispered, that worked, more or less. Those streets were likely packed solid with Panion soldiers. Through gritted teeth, Perrin said, not to mention the rest of the bridge burners. Quickben whispered, they'd have withdrawn by now. Perrin heard the effort in the wizard's hopeful tone. All right, we are going to stop there, and we will finish out the chapter next week. For standout moments, the way the condors appeared to be ornamental gargoyles on the keep's battlements, but then one of them moved, revealing to Perrin that there were a huge number of them roosting up there.
Yeah, and I agree that this would be such an amazing thing to see on the screen. It needs to be done. Somebody, please.
Yeah.
HBO Max, Prime, Amazon, somebody, please. Netflix, I'd settle for Netflix, but please.
Hey, man, some of the movies that they put out have been pretty good. I enjoyed The Gray Man. I thought that was a pretty good movie. Did you watch that?
No, I haven't, but I don't have beef with Netflix. The only beef I ever have is their tendency to cancel a show I like.
What's an example of that?
Santa Clarita Diet.
Oh, okay.
They don't like to go more than 3 seasons on a lot of their things. Sandman's canceled. It was canceled before they even made season 2, just because of budget constraints. It's more expensive than Stranger Things.
I believe it. The previews I saw, the visuals looked crazy. So a lot of CGI, I'm sure.
Yeah. Speaking of the Stranger Things, you know about season 5. Are you a fan of? Have you watched Stranger Things?
Oh, yeah. I enjoyed the first 3 seasons. It started to kind of fall off a little bit for me later on, but at this point, I don't know how you tie it together. It's been so long since the last one came out. The kids are adults now.
Yeah, but you didn't watch 4, though?
I did.
Oh, okay. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think it'll be okay. The one thing I saw that was interesting was that the length of the episodes was significantly longer. The shortest episode is going to be 2 hours long.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. This is like a series of movies.
It's a series of movies. I guess because they've put it off for so long, I guess as they decided to go with these longer formats, maybe you'll see the kids grow up a little bit through the whole season of 2 or 3 years of making this season.
Guess we'll see. I don't know how long they've actually been filming it.
I guess we'll see. Been a while. Excited. I hope it's good. Oh, Umbrella Academy is also one they ruined.
I don't think we watched after season 2.
Season 3 was good. But season 4, I waited for it, and when it came out, they were all rated at like a 4.
Okay.
Sunk the show badly.
The Bridgeburners' creative use of their powers to accomplish the clandestine mission, specifically toes being lifted by spirits to the top of the wall to set the grapnel hooks.
That is hilarious, dude, because I could just see this guy with legs flailing in the air, freaking out, but knowing he has no option but to do this, but he never likes doing this. That's just too funny.
Yeah, and then fighting with the ghosts over the hooks at the top.
Yes. Give him to me.
That really gets me.
Those hooks.
Next, Spindle unleashing his warren to mess up the animal component of the possessed condors to mess up their flight. Really appreciated that.
Yeah, that was great, man. Fantastic.
And then Quickben using Corald Ghislaine to teleport the squad onto the top of the battlements, and then also using it to hide them, I think, from the condors.
That's going to be my assumption, too, is he was using it to hide them. But it's like, dude, where are you?
I'm unclear on whether it was Corald Ghislaine or Mianus there. You know, because it could have been Shadow, theoretically.
Right. Sure.
He seemed to be using Corald Ghislaine in this fight. So
Yeah, that was the last thing mentioned, so I'm assuming that was what it would be.
yeah. Just watching the bridge burners being in their element, the pure professionalism on display as they went to work solving all the issues that cropped up during the assault.
Oh, yeah. This is the only time these guys get to be normal. It's like, you notice that? It's like the rest of the time, these people, that's the problem with soldiers. I think that's the only time that we break them in such a way. The only time a soldier is normal is when they're in the thick of it. It's like, okay, now this is how I'm trained to function.
Oh, man. He really captures that well now that you mention it.
Yeah, he does. It's like all of a sudden they're very normal and they're great. But up until then, it's all this bickering and squabbling because they're bored and they're dangerous if they get bored. But man, once the excrement hits the fan, man, these guys and gals, I wouldn't want anyone else on my side but these fellows.
Picker letting Perrin know that he was one of them now. And that was a very touching moment for me.
It's a very touching moment. And I am like you. I am pretty sure that I think that really kind of this overwhelmed him for a second. He had to take a moment. There was a quick moment. And also, look at this and how great was Perrin's plan to this. Like, hey, you guys go here. We're going to go up here and take out some of these guys here. Great. He's a really good tactical thinker.
Yeah, he saw the problem and moved to address it immediately. And priority number one was making sure that Dujak's assault was covered. That came up a couple of times in this chapter.
Fantastic, dude. But I'm like you, it's very touching.
Tool showing up and announcing his presence in such a quote-unquote explosive manner.
Yeah, that is just freaking amazing when he shows up. And I just love it, dude. I love when we finally get Tool back on the scene. Especially because he's there for talk. He's upset because he's there for his friend. That's very touching to me. I mean, that's like, wow.
I have to read the sentence again.
Okay.
The time had come for the first sword of the Talan Imas to announce himself. I love that sentence, man. It's so good.
It's great, dude. It's great.
Ugh.
And I understand. I know why it resonates with you.
Finally, the continued menace of those forsaken condors. We haven't even seen what's going on with the Kachain Shamal yet, but these condors, man.
Dude, the bad problem with both the Kachain Shamal and the condors, each of these individual entities seems to equal 100 people on the other side, minimum, So it's like,
yeah.
What have we got? We don't even know how many Kachain Shamal we have yet, but it's at least, I'm guessing 20 to 30, and there could be a lot more than that.
I assume it's more. If they sent, 50 to Kapustan, something in there, they've got to have hundreds here.
Yeah. Did we cross this question about the Kachain Shamal? If they're this fast when they're undead, are they even worse when they're alive? I would assume so.
That I don't know. Because to me, when you're undead, magic is animating you as opposed to your life force. So I feel like in some ways, undead could be faster.
Okay.
I don't know. What do you think?
The magic could make them more enhanced. Well, I hadn't thought about it like that. That could very well be true. I'm going to reference I read a series of zombie books. One of our friends from Fry's turned me on to a trilogy of books. It was a very intriguing take on a zombie apocalypse. And when it happened, the main hero, the main character in the first book was a medical student who was bit, and he put himself in a dialysis unit and had his blood circulated and oxygenated while he died. So he had his function when he was alive, but he was still a zombie. But there was some mummies. Mummies were very different. They were faster and stronger than your normal zombies because of how they were preserved. But it's a totally different universe, though. But I could see that undead might be like a mummy and faster and more magically enhanced.
I'm saying that, and then I think I was about to say, well, we haven't really seen a ton of living creatures able to be that fast. Then, of course, we have the Segula, where barely had to move to lop the head off of one of these things. So I guess
that's true.
Living things can be just as fast.
I guess so. That's true.
I was thinking, well, Tool is undead, and he's really fast.
And he's nasty. He's really fast.
But the Segula are giving him a run for his money. So dead or alive, everything can be fast. So I don't know whether it matters.
Yeah.
I've talked myself down.
The undead rules don't apply. We don't have shamblers. We have no shamblers, at least in this universe. No shambling undead. We have a lot of undead in this universe.
Those undead that were serving Grillin, I think they were probably not in a hurry. They were probably shambling.
No.
You don't think so?
No, I think they were pretty chill. They were a pretty slow bunch, but I was just saying that it's once we get over to, there's just such a wide variety of undead in this world. I forget, because remember, in Midnight Tides, there's some weird ones there, man.
Yeah.
And they're more comic relief almost in that sense,
Oh, yeah. All right, man. Great job tonight.
Hey, really great episode, man.
You got any final thoughts before we drop off here?
I just really enjoy seeing this heat up here, man. The bridge burners are in their element. Donnie, I'm sorry.
We went from South Park to The Big Lebowski being our number one reference material.
Yeah. And we haven't touched on them in a while, so it's about time I brought that back up. But I really enjoyed seeing Tool finally show up here for talk. As I hinted at earlier, for some reason, Tool has always been one of my favorite characters. I think a lot of it has to do with this slow drip feed you get on him, but also is the slow, like, he's becoming, I guess since he has been shorn or cut off from his group and he's by himself as a Talanimass, and, that he seems to be getting emotions or something and coming to life or in some weird way or something. So there's something about Tool that has always fascinated me.
Yeah, the humanity of him is coming out. Yeah, definitely see that.
Mm-hmm. Especially the stuff with him and Talk in particular, as we saw at the beginning of the book. It's been so long, it's been a while back, but that kind of bonding that they had where he was teaching him and he gave him his IMAS name and all that stuff. It's like, wow, that's all been very touching to me. And I'm glad to see him back here looking for Errol Fels. Ready. Bring it.
Loyalty, man.
Hey, we need to get Talk out of those clutches, man. That eats me alive.
That's one of the worst parts of this book.
It is. It really is.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Hey, we'll see y'all next week.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at horsefrogproductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.